President Jacob Zuma's concern about signing the Financial Intelligence Centre Amendment Bill into law was that Section 45B(1)(c) of the amendment might have been overboard. It might have unjustifiably violated rights to privacy because it allowed for warrantless searches. After the National Assembly accepted and adopted minor changes to the FICA Bill, it aimed to answer his concerns that it might be unconstitutional, and as far as I know, it still hasn't been signed into law, and the amendments were passed about 2 weeks ago. This is the Moneymakers. I'm Bruce Whitfield. Tonight, we look at the FICA Bill, whether or not it's going to gather more dust in the President's office, with Bonang Mohale, Deputy Chairman of Business Leadership South Africa. He's also on the boards of various financial services companies and appreciates the huge importance of us being part of a global financial system. It is extraordinary, isn't it, how something a fairly simple piece of legislation designed to ensure that money laundering is harder to pursue, that funding of terrorism is harder to pursue, sat on the President's desk for ages, then was referred back to Parliament. Parliament has said, okay, here's an amendment, sign it into law, please, and 2-3 weeks later, we're still sitting waiting for the law to be enacted.
You know, to be simple, Bruce, the fact of the matter is that FICA as it stands today, it's an act of Parliament.
Yep.
It is being implemented. Just yesterday, I got a call from Absa Wealth to say, you have this little bit of money into your account, tell us where it comes from. Because I've got nothing to hide, I said, of course, it's my annual share options paid in dollars every year, and tick. The second question they asked, are you comfortable that we share this information with the South African Revenue Services? And I said, of course. And lastly, are you comfortable that we share it with the South African Reserve Bank? And of course I said yes, because it is foreign currency. If you are a law-abiding citizen who has chosen to be on the side of the truth, who has chosen right over evil, you will be very comfortable with the FICA Amendment Bill.
Now, Mzwadele Mani and many people who work with him in the various organizations that he represents will say, actually, no, you're wrong, Bonang Mohale. What this law is designed to do is it's designed to prevent black South Africans from participating in the mainstream economy because you're unfairly targeted as a black South African if you're going through tender processes and dealing with government, because suddenly it allows prying into your private financial affairs.
In fact, that is not true. In fact, this is the greatest disservice you can give to Dr. Sam Mutsuenyan, who's still alive and just celebrated his 90 years. It's a great disservice to E.T. Chabalala, who's just left us, Sim Chabalala's father. It is a great disservice to Richard Maponya, who became the first millionaire in the 60s through hard work, slog, because they go through this every day. To equate black entrepreneurship with corruption is the greatest disservice we can make to ourselves, because there are a lot of law-abiding citizens who have made their money legally. Sizwe Ngasana, it's a good example. He started Nkonki Sizwe Nsaluba, the first black accounting firm, in a major scale, and there is no more upright human being. Professor Wiseman Kutlu, it's another. Therefore, for people to find dots that are connectable in a manner that cannot be connected, first of all, FICA was promulgated in 2001.
Yes.
The President signed it again in May 2016, just recently.
What is it that makes the President so vulnerable to pressure, and not even very high-level pressure, almost the pressure of noise, that he has declined so far to sign this bit of regulation?
No, I think the President will do this sensible thing. You see, every president anywhere else in the world's job is to uphold, respect, and protect the Constitution. So the Constitution says here, look after the interest of South Africa, Inc. So if some of the proponents whispering in the President's ear that don't sign it are saying, but this is wrong, then it means APSIP is wrong. Then it means Business Unity South Africa is wrong. Then it means the sign it, I will still be asked where my money comes from.
Yeah.
Is it salary? Is it board fees? Did I win the lotto? I still have to account. That is not going to change. And to say that black people are targeted by this, FICA is global. We are the only African country that is a member of FATF, but also of the G20. We have demonstrated to ourselves, to the rest of the continent, 54 countries, 1.2 billion people that speak 2,000 languages, that we are absolutely world-class in our financial services. And we have also demonstrated to the rest of the world that South Africa can be trusted. That's why when you move your money and it says from South Africa, let it pass, because we know that they are prudent. Now, if we don't sign this, first of all, the rating agencies, all three of them, will downgrade us because they'll have to issue a negative report. Now, a downgrade is not elitist. When we get a downgrade, it means that the price of bread, of meal, and of milk will go up. It means that the borrowing costs of all state-owned enterprises will go up. In fact, if it goes up only 1%, it means it doesn't matter what the CEO of SA does. You will always operate at a loss.
Why is the slogan of white monopoly capital getting such traction in South Africa? Is it simply something that lives in social media? Is it something that we can discount as being not serious? It is a figment of people with political aspirations' imagination?
You see, we live in a country where it is a country of announcements. So whenever we go to a conference, we say, what else are we going to announce? Rather than living in a country of principles, rather than living in a country that says, how do we improve the quality of lives of the majority of our people? How do we address the stubbornly high levels of unemployment, which then give rise to the increasing levels of poverty and increasing levels of inequality? In fact, inequality trumps poverty, because inequality leads to social uprisings, whereas poverty on its own, it doesn't. India has been the poorest country in the world, and yet some of the most law-abiding religious human beings are found in India. So in that narrative, we now find in 23 years into democracy, we pull out a report that was prepared for Rolihlahla Mandela to say, you know, in the days of dark apartheid, there was this entity called Bankop. They did get a bailout. Bailouts get given to American institutions every single time. Obama came into office on that pretext, and based on that, he embarked on the biggest quantitative easing. That's what is done when you are a country and you have a little bit of cop and you use your medulla oblongata. You don't take that as a crime. So the report was prepared for Rolihlahla. He looked at it and said, no substance, file 13. When he handed over to Thabo Mbeki, and he gave him the report, Thabo Mbeki looked at it and said, interesting, but I'm not going to do anything about it. This report was given to the ex-public protector, who looked at it and said, okay, I'll go through the motions, but no conclusion was done. We should ask ourselves, really as thinking South Africans, as serious South Africans, to say what has changed 23 years later. Now we whip this out with an ill-prepared, ill-conceived conclusion. Then we say, you know, we must go and picket outside of ABSA. ABSA is the biggest employer of people in this country, not just in financial services. When this thing was done during Bankop days, there was no ABSA. In fact, it was Bankop
and Trust Bank and all of these.
It was Bankop and then United. Then it became ABSA. This entity that we boycotting today, it's not even called ABSA. It's called Barclays Africa, run by a true patriot, a matriarch of a woman, Maria Ramos.
What has gone wrong? What has gone wrong that we believe the noise and the bulldust and the distraction? Because we are so distracted from doing what really has to be done, and that is to rescue the South African economy, to create opportunity and hope for more people in this country so that we narrow the divides between rich and poor.
What has simply gone wrong?
Why do we allow ourselves to
What has simply gone wrong is that we have lost our moral compass. The ANC was the most profound freedom organization, liberation party in the longest living. It had guiding principles. It had men and women of stature who were principled. Now, you look at this ANC, you need to ask yourself, which ANC? Because there are so many ANCs. There are those that stand for truth. There are those that don't. There are those that feed on the trough. And there are those who had enveloped bribery, stealing, and corruption. And the single biggest risk that South Africans face today is corruption by the state, not corruption just by the private sector. I'm from the private sector. Yes, there was the bread cartel. Sure. Yes, there was the building construction during 2010 cartel. And the private sector is dealing with those companies and their membership in organizations like the BLSA.
They've subjected themselves also to the full authority of the law, unlike many state-owned entities.
And they've got systems and processes to deal with that. But the biggest corruption is, how do we live with ourselves when on the 1st of April we are going to look at 17 million South Africans and say you are not going to get paid? Because we knew that when the apex court, the highest court in the land, said this tender with CPS Net 1 is unconstitutional and therefore not wholesome. And it gives us 3 years to fix it. And 3 years later, we have orchestrated and agitated that we have this crisis man-made. Self-perpetuated, cutting your own nose to spite your own face, so that again we can continue with the feeding. I think South Africans must wake up. 17 million of them who are not going to be paid on the 1st of April and saying, not in our name.
No, and that's the crisis that we face. As we look ahead to December this year, it's the date everyone's looking at as to who's going to lead the ANC into the future. Does the centre hold? In your estimation, as best as you can estimate right now?
At the moment, it doesn't. You see, we should be saying, how do we become internationally competitive? Because this notion called strategy is simply how to compete. So we compete at a nation, at a company, but also at a personal level. We want to compete internationally. People are stealing our lunch. And we do that by putting our best foot forward. In the 400 MPs of Rolihlahla Mandela's first cabinet, every single one of those MPs could have gone on to become a good president. Today, we shun competence because it shows us up. Today, we have embarked on a movement that is clearly anti-intellectual. Today, we have chosen people that have no demonstrable track record. I spoke about Sizwe Nxasana. I mean, Sizwe started his own accounting firm.
Okay.
Sizwe started...
I'll be shouted out in my ear. Okay. So let's look at the dream team in 2018. Let's say, for example, Cyril Ramaphosa wins the race to lead the ANC, and he phones you up and he says, Bonang, I need a Minister of Trade and Industry. Will you be that guy? Would you answer the call?
I think the reason why we work so hard in the private sector is so that we play with somebody's money, we get much needed skills so that we can use these skills so that we can be the greatest nation in the world.
Would you answer the call to public service? I'm thinking of Sizwe Nxasana as a finance minister one day, Bonang Mohale, trade and industry. I don't know.
I hate politics with a passion, purely because of the corruption, but I've always answered the call of nature. I've served in the Presidential Review Commission. I've served on the Big Business Working Group with the President. I still serve this President on the 5 Strategic Initiative, CO initiative. So I'll always save my country. That's why we are here, because all of us need to make sure that our children are much better on a composite basis than we were. So I'll always hit that call.
Bonang Mohale, thank you very much indeed. Always interesting to talk to the Deputy Chairman of Business Leadership South Africa, Bonang Mohale. Wears many hats. His day job is to run Shell South Africa, but he is deeply involved in business issues across sectors and across this economy, and clearly feels very strongly and passionately about its future success. Thank you so much for watching. And tonight you can have yourselves a very good evening. Good night.